I did not lift any money out of my business for the first 2.5 years I was building it. Didn't take any money out because I was having to invest in equipment. I had to buy my iMac, and I had to get like printer. I had to get invest in courses and things, because suddenly, like you guys know, learning tech and stuff is a whole other language. So although I knew what I knew about design, didn't know how to market myself, and I didn't know how to know social media. Now, so I'd take courses, and as well as building a business, be reinvesting at the same time. So yeah, I've only really paid myself properly for the last 18 months of my business. Brilliant. And even still, not what I used to earn before yet.
We're not sure anyone else has told us a story that typifies being a small business owner as much as the story that Julie Christie-Clark has shared with us today. She talks about how one moment she's on the desk in tears, something we've all done because the business isn't going how she wants it to be going. And 24 hours later, she gets an email that massively changes the direction. It's an exciting story that she's going to share with us all in the podcast episode. She's also talking about how when you're a single parent, sometimes you have to do things that you may not want to do to get things, to where you need to be. A huge thank you to Julie Christie-Clark. She is mind-blowing. 150,000 followers on TikTok, very other successful businesses. More about her in the description below. But also, if you're new here, please would you mind subscribing to our channel? As a small business, we're also trying to make a difference to our lives and would love it if you fancy subscribing.
I have no idea.
And I know you've written Jules, but are we calling you Jules or Julie? Your call.
Do you know, I find this such a conundrum because I get called both, and it used to just be my family called me Jules, but then I put it in my business name because it was easier to get all the domains and things and the profiles for Jules and Julie. So now I have to get used to everyone calling me Jules, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, we're quite big on calling people what they want to be called, so I always get
Jules is fine.
Jules is fine. Whew, I get nervous. Right, well, let's do it. Let's do it. So, Jules, thank you so much for joining us today on the Digital Circus Life podcast. But with everything, we need to start at the beginning, and the very beginning for us is a question which is, what are you trying to achieve, Jules? Whether it's for your business, your life, or a mix of both, what are you trying to achieve?
Oh my goodness, you start off with a biggie, don't you?
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. I think for the first time, I'm trying to achieve something just for myself. All my working life career has been, I've had a family, young kids, know how it's that strive to survive, and now my kids are teenagers. This is my time to be selfish and build something for me. I've always wanted to do something for me, so I'm always a bit of a people pleaser, keep everyone else happy, but now I'm actually being quite selfish and doing something for me.
And I think, Jules, we've been following you for a little while now, and good few years actually. And I know that
some may say stalkers, Emily.
Mild stalkers,
yeah.
appreciation from afar.
Yeah.
But we got talking a couple of years ago, and you were still part time in this business. You were still towing that line between employed and part time, and then obviously over the last 12 months, you've gone completely 2 feet into this. But what a 12 months you have had in a very short window of time. You've taken that whole achieving something for myself, and you have gone all guns blazing, haven't you?
Yeah, but it's gone all guns blazing in a completely different direction than I actually expected it to. As you know, and it's funny because it's almost came from with Canva. When I first came across Canva and saw it, I'm just like, oh my goodness, as a designer, I was very defensive. What is this? Now, how dare they now? To a complete 360 and saying, actually, this is amazing. And if I don't learn how to use this and get on board with it, then you're going to get left behind because it's not going anywhere. It's the biggest thing to hit the design industry ever. I think Adobe kind of had that whole kind of thing kind of quite tightly lid held on it. And it's weird because as a designer, I have been very much focused on providing a design product to people, but now actually this enables me to empower them to be able to design for themselves. And I suddenly realised I love teaching. So it's kind of opened up a whole new avenue. And the thing is, actually, when the the Canva Australia thing happened, the week before I was in my office crying, thinking, I can't keep doing this. My husband came up with a cup of tea going, why are you crying? I'm just going, I'm working all these hours. I'm trying to get this to succeed and nothing's happening, and with other parts of the business and stuff. And he's like my absolute like champion cheerleader. He's like, you can do it. I know you can do it. You've worked too hard not to. And then it was literally the following week, I woke up to the email because it was Los Angeles, the guy sent it from. So I woke up to it and I actually replied back and just went, is this real? And then realised it was like 2 a.m. to him. So, and then I phoned my husband and I was like, I think I've got an invite to Australia. And he's just, and I won't swear on the podcast. It was lots of swearing because my husband's typical Glasgow boy, lots of swearing. and I had a few swear words too. And then the two of us burst into tears again, but for different reasons.
Wow.
Because it was a happy accident. So, yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, you've said so much there. I've got 1,000 thoughts, right? and I think, but I'm not sure if any story sums up being the life of a small business owner as much as that, where in 24 hours you're going from, and we've glossed over what you're trying to achieve. So we're going to have to come back to that at some point. But within 24 hours, you're crying in your chair going, oh my God, which we've all done.
I was about to say, you're never going to be on a faster roller coaster, are you, than it is when you're in small business world or entrepreneurship. And I was actually watching Sarah Davies' little snippet on, I think she was talking to, I don't like him, Spencer Matthews.
You don't have to like
Spencer
him or
Matthews,
not like him, Spencer.
the Made in Chelsea guy, and she was talking about, she remembers the time when she was on her maternity leave and she was doing the school run, and all the other mums were going, "Oh, I'd love to start my own business. You get to do all this fun stuff, and
you can do the school run,
and she's there smiling. She's like, "You do not see me at 4 a.m. crying into my cereal, going, oh, I've got," and it's the feeling of, is it going to be enough? Is it going to work? Is it going to work for the kids? Am I going to make our mortgage payment this month? Am I going to find the clients? And all of those questions in 1,000 seconds and back again, all that happens. And then, like you say, you get an email or a phone, and it can completely transform your mindset. You think you're on top of the world again. And it's that adventure starts on a completely different avenue, like it has for you, which I have to say, well bloody done.
Yeah, that's if we live closer, we'd be awarding you a gold star, for sure.
Oh, thank you.
But can we jump back to the achieve part as well? Because you're the second. This is the 7th one we've recorded, and you're the second person who's given a goal that's probably more about them than it is about other people, which is cool. Obviously, it's your goal. And both of you, I'm trying to think if I need to deliver this in a PC way, both of your children, their child and your children, are slightly older. Yeah. So they're at the next phase.
Well delivered.
I know, I get in trouble regularly.
You're not wanting to say I'm an older lady. And I think that's the thing, and again, we need to kind of go way back. So I've been a designer my whole career. From the point in leaving school, I was going to be an accountant. Could you ever picture me as an accountant?
No, not in a million years.
No. But I was that way. I was very creative, but I was also really academic as well. And I was in school in the 90s, and graphic design was only really just emerging. We had one computer where the art teacher was learning Coral Draw or something like that, and I was ancient. And so I had my art teacher want me to go to Glasgow School of Art. I had my guidance teacher wanting me to go to university and do something academic. And at the time I just thought, well, accountancy, you can make a career out of that. It's a good paying job. And I did two things. I went up in Scotland. We have in 4th year, you have to go for a week's work experience. And my mum and dad have a business, so they arranged for me to go to the accountant for the week. And I was bored out my skull. Everyone was very lovely, but the guy was saying, just think your signature will be on this paperwork for the next 20 years. And in my head, I'm thinking, in a file in a box that nobody ever sees. And then a couple of months later, my cousin, who's a good few years older, apologies.
There's a dog in the background.
In the house, yeah. he just started a design agency, and my cousin's 16 years older, so he's always the kind of cousins I looked up to. Big family, lots of cousins. And he phoned me up and he went, can you come and work for the week because our receptionist is on holiday, do a bit of running and answer phones and stuff. And I'm like, yes, I'm 15. So I go in, but he took me out to visit his clients and do the kind of proposals and the kind of like scamps and the works. And then there wasn't printers like colour printers now. You had to go to reprographic places. So I'd be running up and down the hill, Park Circus in Glasgow, like delivering discs to get printouts and stuff, and then running back with them. And I came home that week and I went, I want to be a designer. And my dad's like, no, you're going to have pink hair and dungarees and all that. And I'm like, no. What about me? I wanted to have an accountant in the family. And my art teacher got really annoyed with me because he wanted me to go to art school. And again, it's got a brilliant name. However, in the mid-90s, there's a place called Glasgow Building and Printing College, and they were known for actually churning out designers who knew how to work in agencies, who worked to briefs and how. Yeah. So when we were that's where I eventually went, and my art teacher fell out with me. But we actually had a friend transfer from art school after a year because he sat for a year and didn't actually design anything. He was to paint his feelings and do all this kind of stuff, and he's like, oh. So and my cousin was telling me, all agencies, we see a CV from art school, we don't even look at it. So then doing that, and of course, long story, as you know, I'll warble on. I did very lucky to get into being a junior designer and working in a brilliant agency. I was there 9 years, had my first child, but it was a long distance and I was married, obviously, and things. But I became a single parent when I didn't expect to, when I had two very young children. They were only 1 and 4.
Wow.
So suddenly I was like back at home. Mum and Dad kind of scooped me up, picked me up. And it was also the very first time I wasn't working. I'd worked right from like 15 all the way up and stuff. And it was right when I had the gap with my second child, my little boy. And that's when I had the first business as well, which I know you're probably going to ask me about.
Yeah.
And again, it's linked to the marriage and stuff. And I had to get back into work and security and look after my children. So I had to kind of park my dreams of having a business and get back into paid employment, which is why my why now, what I want to achieve, is something for me, because I had to do what I needed to survive. Then it was turned into a whole different career, but it's like, well, there's one doggy. This is a quiet doggy.
I love their appearance. They should be here.
I'm like, we're delivering super profound life stuff, but here's my dog.
But that's real life. It's
that is real life.
And I completely respect that as a parent myself. You know, that whole you do whatever you need to do for your children to make sure that they are comfortable and looked after, and you're, you know, especially as a solo parent. Luckily, I still have.
Hello.
But I have a full-on respect, and I don't know how people do it really, because I know how tiresome children can be, and having 2 little ones at that age as well. But always, I understand that feeling of like your dreams and are literally wiped from that carpet under your feet straight away in order to do what you need to do. So how long did you stay in that paid employment for before you decided to go into your first business?
So I was, and I was 9 years. I went from the same company, from junior designer up to senior designer, and I had an amazing boss. And I think it was in the right environment, because again, the late 90s, early 2000s were not kind to young females in the industry. No. It was a very misogynist industry, and it was very dog probably is the word. And actually I'd done a few different stints of work experience in different agencies while I was at college, and I actually remember sitting with mum going, I don't think I can be a designer because I won't survive. And I'm very quiet, I'm very introverted. I was gonna say I'm not bullshit. I'm probably better now that I'm in my 40s. I've found my voice, but I wouldn't have spoke up for myself in my 20s. And my boss ended up being, he came up to our student exhibition showcase thing, and his company is about an hour away from Glasgow, And at the time, and you'll laugh, at the time I was thinking, that's fine, I can make it there. I didn't have a car at the time, but I ended up getting the job, and there's no public transport. It's taking like 3 hours. Scotland, oh my goodness, transport links are awful. But my dad, who has a glazing business, it's like, don't worry, hen, I'll clean out a van for you. So he cleaned out a van for me.
I
And
love it.
it was a wee red Escort van. It still had the rack on the side. And
Love
I
that.
drove that van to work, and it turned up like suited and booted, but like in a worker's van. And a couple of our designers look at me going, who is this? But to me, that I grew up with my dad being in the vans and stuff. And when I passed my driving license, I had a big brother. If they were using the car, my brother was using the car, we'd jump in the van and we'd share the van. So, and I remember one of the designers kind of scoffing, going, "Oh, give us a shot of your van." He couldn't drive it because it didn't have power steering, and he'd
Oh,
seen me driving in and swing into the spaces and stuff, and thought, "Oh, I can do that," and he couldn't park it, and he's going, "How do you park this?" I'm going, "Because it's like, you know, that's what you do," and it's and then when I became pregnant with my first child, my daughter Christie, and my boss is amazing, and at this point, he'd kind of shown me more or less how a business worked. I wanted to learn how to know everything about print and the print process, so I can like work with the printers and like provide good artwork and cost to the customer and invoice. And he was also very creative, but he would leave stacks of invoices, and I'd be looking at him going, Derek, what? And I suppose because mum and dad have a business as well, I understood cash flow and how profit stuff like that. And I'm going, how are you? How's cash flow if you've not invoiced for like 2 months? And he's like, oh, I know, but I really hate invoicing. I mean, give them to me and I'll do it. And he's like, would you? And I'm going, absolutely. If it keeps, if it means I get paid at the end of the month. Whereas the other designers kind of a bit, why do I want to do that? It's not my job role. And I'm going, why do you not want to learn everything there is about running a business? And actually, when I was off maternity leave, I used to go down like once every 2 months with my wee girl, and he would like buy me my lunch and like play with Christie, and I would do his invoices for him while I was off maternity because I knew he was still awful at doing them. And then he gave me a Mac home so I could still do bits and pieces for that point, building my own business. And he actually helped me build my first exhibition, the stand and stuff, and helped me exhibit, stood in like, it was wedding stationery, and helped me sell at my own stand and stuff. He was super supportive.
which is, isn't it, wouldn't it be great if all bosses were that supportive? But the bit, I'm not sure whether I just missed this or not, but why were you so keen to run your own business? Where did that was that just because how you've been brought up, seeing it around you? You're like, well, I'll just run my, a natural progression almost.
I think, well, at the time again, and linked at the time, see, once you had children and you're in design agencies, very difficult to stay in work. Not against my current boss, but my challenge was he was 60 miles away. So
Yeah.
what I suddenly found was, before I had Christie, I was happy to work late and then drive home. And sometimes if it was a good day, it was an hour. If it was a bad day, it was an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I would get home and she'd already be in bed, and I would like miss that and stuff. And I realised I can't keep working here. And before this, you couldn't do remote working, all that. It wasn't around then. The internet was just emerging then. Now, like when I first worked for him, we didn't have a website because websites didn't exist. And this is when he said to me, like, what about like having your own business and what would you like to do? And I'm like, well, wedding stationery. So we kind of knew this was going to transition. What I didn't count on, and again with my mum and dad having their own business, I grew up with that life, like that's what I ultimately wanted to have. I didn't, and this is what's important, and I'll be totally honest, I didn't count on not having a supportive partner. And again, you'll totally understand this dynamic. To succeed and keep the passion and keep going, you need that absolute rock support. And he also worked away. He was in the oil industry, so he was often away for weeks at a time, and got on with my stuff and it'd be fine. And I was juggling the baby and like that up till put the baby to sleep, then I would work now and work around the baby sleeping and stuff. And I quickly realised it was very hard to get a business off the ground without support. But I couldn't go back into agency work because I had a young child. Interviews, they weren't interested in hiring me because they wanted somebody who would be there And if a client requested something at 4:30, that the designer would stay on and do it. I knew of people who would brag when interviewing for designers. Yeah, we show them the sleeping bag under the desk, and if they balk, we know they're not the designer for us. This was the industry I was surrounded
It's
by.
cutthroat. Yeah.
It was cutthroat, and even if you were out, I had a small gap between the two kids in the business, which was 3 years, and suddenly Quark Express was no longer used and InDesign came in, and I hadn't used InDesign yet. And I suddenly thought, oh my God, I've only been away a couple of years, but I suddenly it's a whole new thing to learn. It moved so fast then as well, so it was quite difficult to keep up. But then when my marriage did end, which ended very suddenly, and it was I'd literally just closed down the business and done a little bit of freelance work, which was my first toe dipping in, and yeah, I had suddenly had to find a job, which was
Yeah.
luckily got me off gym, which I saw the I saw the post Christmas Eve, and again and again I cry a lot. So I had that phone call with my mum, and I was also up in Aberdeen because it was all industry 2009, and there's a big crash and stuff, so we had to work from the office, and that's when we split up. So I was away from home for the first time and with two young children, and thought, crap, I need to get a job. And I was looking up things that I could do, and I phoned my mum crying, going, I can't even be a cleaner. I'm not even qualified to be a cleaner. I don't know how to use Office, Microsoft, a PC, all this stuff, because I've been literally just Mac based as well. And then in Christmas Eve, I saw an advert for graphic designer stroke event officer for a 3-month contract back in Glasgow. And I just thought, I need that job. I have to get that job. And that's a job that ended up turning into being there 12 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
But like, there's so much you're saying, and I'm sitting here thinking about these jobs that do appear when these things, let's say, that do appear when you need them to appear. And as you're kind of, I think this is fascinating. This is, your desire you want to do this, you want to be a designer, but these I don't want to call children stumbling blocks. These things, I say things, happen in your life, and the path isn't smooth because we have our 3 young children as well. And it's certainly not smooth with ours around. But what I like is now we know you now, and you are. And do I imagine that now is kind of almost what you envisaged it being all those years ago, but obviously now didn't exist all those, you talked about pre-internet and everything else. So is this like that accumulation of all those thoughts and, visions over the years, visualizations?
Yeah, I mean, my experience, I don't know many other designers who've been around as long as me and still doing design or not moved on to something else. But again, I very much am a design for print person and a branding designer. That when I worked in the first design studio, that's very much what our focus was. And when we built the agency and it got bigger, we hired a web designer, web developer, UX designer. We all had very distinct roles. And again, what I've found as well, I've been in-house and working at a design job, when all that jobs they advertise and expect you to be able to do all of that in one. And sometimes they want a wee bit of like video production chucked in and photography as well. And you're suddenly thinking, these were all individual skills. And again, I have really appreciated obviously moving into a corporate role and a very big corporate business with a completely different clientele who are a challenge to themselves. But again, it helped me like with the kind of whole people skills. But it was brilliant for was give you lots of personal development training, how to handle difficult conversations and how to become a better leader and all that stuff you can get, which then helps you to carry those skills across when you go back into the entrepreneur world and you're doing it just as yourself. And that job grew. It started off as a 3-month contract. And when I went in, I suddenly realised that there was another designer down in London who wasn't happy that I'd been put in this post, which a director just often did, and had to be put aggro with them. And 2 years later, I got put into their team, and then we were competing for the same job because they'd done a reorganisation. And it's amazing how you suddenly find this resilience. And again, that was at the point where I was going through my divorce. And on the one hand, you've got if I get this job, then I get a promotion up to a different band. So it's a significant pay increase. It's a permanent role. I can apply to get my mortgage in my own name and get my ex off of it. Now, so I have security for the children. However, if I don't get it, what am I going to do now? and and again, you have this whole, and I'm quite a realist but a positive person. So I'm kind of going, right, I'm doing well and I've got where I am so far. I've lasted 2 years on kind of semi-permanent contracts getting extended. And then I've got my wee dad going, I bet hen, she's in London. You're not going to get it. Because she's in London. And now, but in my head, I'm going, but why are they even letting me interview if they don't think I've got a chance? And I think a bit like that. I walked into that room with the 3-month contract going, I need to get this job to get home to Glasgow. I kind of walked into the London office going, I need to get this job again for my children so that I can like survive and get through. And I did. I got that job. And then I ended up building a whole team and stuff. So it was crazy. Like,
it is.
So you've got such a fire in your belly. That's incredible. And I just think, again, going back to the whole motherly love thing, that it's that drive, like so many other people wouldn't have at that point as well, because you have no plan B. It's either I get this, or what do I do? And, having that mentality of going, right, I'm going to make sure I get this job. That's really something to be applauded as well, because not everyone has that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think for me, that's exactly what this podcast is about, and why we're regular people with remarkable achievements. And one of the things we're talking about is people with commitments, because if you don't have those commitments, like children and mortgages and everything else that can be a commitment in your life, and you are at the earlier phases of your life, and you have you're in the amazing position to kind of live with your mum and dad whilst growing your business, it's a very, very different experience where you get to make the correct decision. When you're in this phase with children and life and everything else, then sometimes you have to do something you may not necessarily want to do if you were, you had whatever, the no commitment. I lost myself. I lost myself.
I'd say the other thing I've picked up from the conversation, and I come from not a similar background, because I'm definitely not a designer, but I was brought up in a family business as well. So my mum and dad worked in the family business with my grandfather, and most of my entire weekends, every single weekend for as long as I can remember, was in the back of the shop or in the back of the van as well. Like we had a red little postman pat type van, and it was 2 seats. So we would just get in the back of the van and drive to work with mum and dad. And it's those little things I didn't think impacted me now as a 40-year-old, but actually when I look back at it, it was those foundations of things that I remember. And I see my mum working for, they had no plan B. They were 2 feet in together in the family business. Yeah. And it was watching them with their struggles. It was watching them again, cash flow and working out who was going to look after the children and making sure that they were not feeling guilty about the fact that we were in the back of their, because that was the only choice they had.
But I think there's an element of normalizing it as well, isn't there? So there is no real wrong in our decisions as long as they're not wrong, if that makes sense, legally wrong. But you can have things more normalized for you. No, so running your own business being normalized helps.
But I think what comes down to it is that having that upbringing, a bit like yourself, is that I suppose I understand, like you do as well, how you have to work for what you want and you have to graft for it, and it's not always going to be an easy road. Divorces happen, children happen, redundancies happen. They're always going to get in the way. But it's that fire in your belly to say, right, okay, what do I want to do? What am I trying to achieve? What is the end goal here? I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get to that. And it's really, really incredible.
And then you're being flown to Australia to visit Canva.
So just kind of get back to that then. So clearly you are 2 feet into your business now. You have finished your permanent employment now. What made you decide to go back into self-employment?
Yeah, so I think I went in-house, which I'd never done before. And at the start, it was growing the organisation. Like when I started in the Glasgow office, I was number 19. We knew everyone across the departments. It was a one floor. By the time I left, there was nearly 400 in the Glasgow office.
Wow.
And there was what was maybe 300 in London was now over 1,000. So the organisation grew so much. And so for me, there was lots to do and lots I could get stuck into. And I was I was getting promoted and I became a head of team. I got other designers, and like that. I've mentored and worked with other designers all my career, and I got to rebrand them as well, which was huge. But then eventually you get caught up with the politics of the organisation and the frustrations in the organisation, and I couldn't bear. There's lots of snobbery in the civil service. I'm not in it anymore, so I can say that. And if it was either snobbery because I was Scottish and based in the Glasgow office with people who were based in London, happened a lot. Snobbery because I was in a creative role and not respected because they were economists, lawyers, policy people. And the amount of times I had to really grit my teeth and or stick my heel in when people were trying to go above my head and go to my director and complain about a brand decision they wanted to do, which I fully believed, and I can get quite tenacious. I am hired for this position. It doesn't matter what band or grade I am. This is my role. I am the brand manager in this organisation. You cannot stick the old logo on that and put it out to the outside thing. It damages our reputation. People won't trust us. And they're going, I don't agree with you. I want to do this. I'm just going to go and talk to your director because we had a wee chinwag at the Christmas party. That stuff done my nut in. And the amount of times I had to fight my place, or I had somebody telling me to go away and stop like annoying my pretty little head and all this kind of stuff. I got patted in the head once, and and like, and he was a director, so again I went and complained to his director, and he just kind of went, what do you want me to do? I went, I want you to go and pull him up. I want you to pull him up. And oh well, yeah, well, he's a bit difficult, and he's ex-army, and I'm going, what does that mean now? So you deal with that, and then there's the restructures, constant restructures, and that I decided to make the decision to, on a whim, start my business because I was in a hotel room in London and we were having a big all staff conference, and it was all yay, how they're chanting how amazing are we, as we were in the middle of a restructure, and I was sitting having to do a business plan to justify why my team existed and why we didn't just outsource to agencies. And we're a team of 4 at this point, and I added up what our salaries were for the year, went through our work for a full year. And because I had all the knowledge of working in agencies and pricing jobs, I could realistically price how much all that work would cost individually. And I think we were like a quarter of the cost of what it would be going out to an outside agency, because of course they never have something complete. There's always changes. There's always run on.
Sure.
And I suddenly thought, if I get made redundant now, I have no plan B. I have been in-house for 10 years now. I have no contacts left in the design industry. Companies have changed. Companies have went bust. I have no clients. So I sat that night in my bed and I started an Instagram account because I had no portfolio either, because I couldn't show any of the work that I did in-house for 10 years, and I wouldn't want to because it was energy industry. It was boring. And I just thought, right, I'm going to start this. And that's why when I was looking up profile names, I couldn't get branding by Julie because Julie was taken. So I thought Jules. And I had an amazing boss, and as an off gym, we're still best friends now for like the first 6 years I was there. And she was the one who was saying to me, you need to just get out. You need to leave, because she'd left by this point and she'd got out. She went, you need to get out too. And like that, I don't want to go back into agency. I'm too old for that. And I'm too kind of niche now. And I didn't really want to work with other corporate businesses because I couldn't stand the sign-off processes and the multiple people wanting input. I thought, I want to focus on branding, and I want to work with small businesses. I want to work with the actual person that runs the business because they're the decision maker. Yeah. And I just set up an Instagram account from nothing one night.
I love it.
Yeah.
Is it? There's no words really, because we have only really known you. So how long have you been with Branding by Jules, unofficially and officially?
Unofficially 4 years. Officially 4 years. 3 years in June was my third proper year in business as a limited company. But it took me 3 years to be able to leave my full-time job. I started cutting down my hours and eventually it was like 3.5 days in corporate job, and then like full-time hours on top of that, building up the business. But And again, that's the cautious side to me. Like, how do I let this go? Like,
Yeah.
because it's so secure. And again, my dad going, the pension, hen, the pension, you're giving the pension. It's
I
like, as you
know.
start getting older, all these things start counting. And it was a really difficult decision to eventually go. But again, I went through from that first restructure was in 2019. I went through another two after that. By the third one, I'm just like, I need out of here. I need to leave.
But
And I think I think sometimes I get the cautious, and actually I would encourage everyone to build up the side hustle into a main hustle before leaving their permanent employment. But sometimes, do you know what I mean?
we didn't.
No, our story's horrific sometimes with some of our decisions.
You ever think about doing a redo sometimes? Some of the we wouldn't change a thing at all. We've loved the adventure.
No, I absolutely would change two things, but that's another story.
But mine was, again, civil service, and I just had a second child, and I'd started with Bailey Bell Tents, and it was like, it's not quite at that point. I'm not going back to that job. I am not going back to that job. And I just
and
I
I'm the
decided
numbers man, and I remember sitting there going, how do I tell Emily she can't leave her job? You know, that we really, and she
So
was
he
like, I'm
didn't tell
leaving.
me.
I'm like, yes, we'll save that for our episode.
Absolutely. But I think, yes, building that, but that comes at the same merit as well, because that does mean playing the long game to know that you can get to a point where you can slip that in the other direction, and building something in the evenings, at the weekends, during the afternoon, when you're cheekily on stuff when you're not meant to be, or at your work desk. All of that
Never
takes grit, because you need to try and prove that it can work on the other side of that. And it's what so many people kind of don't appreciate. And when we go back to the younger kind of entrepreneurs of today, how old do we sound?
No, how patronising do you sound?
Is that they'll never really understand that how hard it is to do things, and actually if it's not working instantaneously, they move to the next idea.
Well, yeah, I got a couple of other takeaways, if that's all right as well. My other one is you started your business with an Instagram account, right? And we started Bay Lily Bell Tents with just a Facebook page before we bought anything. And I love that. And like so many people think you need a business plan, you need investment, no, you don't. You can just do that. And my other thing is, because I was writing our newsletter today, and we're very big on content, this is content. And a lot of people in their own business start a business because they've got something they wish to monetize, and then they need to work out how to market their business. So they go to social media, or they go networking, or anything else. You've actually taken the journey of someone in the creator economy, which is you started creating content, built up a bit of an audience, and then started to monetize it, which I feel is actually the better way to do it if you are a solopreneur, small business, because it allows you to build that audience first. And I don't know if you realised you'd made that as a conscious decision. Well, you probably did, actually, if you were being cautious. It's Jules and you were being cautious.
I kind of feel a lot of it's been, and again, you say things happen when they're meant to. Like for a long time, sometimes people would ask me to freelance and do favours or create branding for them. And because it was always friends and family and stuff, and this is the biggest bugbear, you can never, they don't pay your worth. Like, or you feel you can't charge your worth, so you do peanuts. And for a long time, I was so, my corporate job was so intense and so encompassing. I was like, I don't have time. No, I'm not. And for a good few years, I didn't do any freelance at all. But then, weirdly, when I kind of put out the Instagram account and I followed a few friends and I said, I'm going to start now some freelance work, a friend of mine who had actually kind of not seen for a while had an events company, and I'd done some stuff for her a few years ago, but then when I wasn't doing any freelance work and she knew that I wouldn't do anything, she instantly messaged me saying, oh my God, I've been wanting to rebrand for about a year, but there's nobody I really know that I trust, and I absolutely trust you. Please rebrand me. And she put PS, this will be a paid job. Like straight away. And I was like, right, okay. And when I rebranded her, and of course I gave her like mates rates, though, even though she said it was paid job, but she paid me something. Because she was in events and she knew contacts, she got me my next one. It was a cake designer, and then I did that one, and then I had suddenly had work that I could put on Instagram to show what my work was like. Then I got my next one. Now, so it just kind of slowly grew. I mean, it's been such a slow build up. And I think again, like that, people are so impatient and people want it to happen right now. They want that viral video. They want to get 1,000 followers in a month. And that's what you see in a lot of the content. How I grew my account in 1 month and how to magic numbers. I have worked hundreds and hundreds of hours in the background to sorry, get that she's so quiet, and then she just
It's
erupts.
because they agree how hard you're working. It's just getting involved in the conversation.
And it's taken me a long time. I mean, again, I did not lift any money out of my business for the first 2.5 years I was building it. Didn't take any money out. Yeah. Because I was having to invest in equipment. I had to buy my iMac, and I had to get like printer. I had to get invest in courses and things, because suddenly, like you guys know, learning tech and stuff is a whole other language. So although I knew what I knew about design, didn't know how to market myself. Now I didn't know how to know social media. Now so I'd take courses, and as well as building a business, be reinvesting at the same time. So yeah, I've only really paid myself properly for the last 18 months of my business. Brilliant. And even still not what I used to earn before yet.
Yes, so, and that's the word is it will come. Think about the last 12 months again, coming full circle to the fact that in the last 12 months, not only have you gone completely, you're completely independent in the business. You haven't got the full-time job next to you now. You are being flown to Australia. You're one of the Canva creators. You've got so much going for you at this point now, and it's just the beginning. It's the tipping point of all the greatness that's to come. Exciting. It's really exciting. Now, Alan, have you got your final question?
I have. Final question. We're going to wrap up, Jules, if that's all right. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fascinating. But what we're curious, and you shared quite a lot of your life with us, thanks, is if you could go back to your younger self, and you can pick any age you wish, and give them a pep talk, bit of advice, a little whatever, what would you say to your younger self?
You like to start and end with the really difficult stuff, don't you?
Yeah, sorry.
I think absolutely, like, I wish I'd found my voice 10 years before I did, and stood up for myself more, and believed myself more. And actually, I now see it in my daughter. My daughter's 19, and I see that she has that quiet, like, confidence underneath, but she doesn't believe she has it. And I know that's what I was probably like then as well. And it's almost like, how do I instill in her everything I now know about the world to give her that confidence at 19 that I wish I had? Yeah. Because I sometimes do think, what could I have achieved if I had? Like, I know I held myself back, and I didn't put myself forward for things, and I didn't speak up in situations where I really wish I had. And then in private, in my first marriage and in my work life, I wish I had that confidence. And my husband laughs now. I'm with him 10 years. We actually got engaged 10 years yesterday. We actually almost forgot the anniversary. We married 9 years when we were so busy, because he works for himself as well, so we're so busy. But he's a total opposite. As I said before, absolute solid cheerleader. And I am the first to say to him and speak up and say if I'm not happy with something. And the same with my dad, because I trust him enough, and I'm secure enough that I can be like that with him. Whereas before, I was always, and in work life and in private life, I apologetic. I'm really sorry if I didn't do something right, or I'll do better. Whereas now I'm just like, what do you mean you're not happy? Because I'm going off and doing this. So it's like, if my 20-year-old self, I wish I could tell her to have the confidence that I have now. Yeah.
Great advice.
Love it. Jules, thank you so much. Really, truly amazing to chat to you, because you were just one of those people on Instagram until we got talking. So truly appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening today. Thank you again, Jules. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.